Welcome to Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm Paula Eddy Wilcox, and today is the third episode with our wonderful guest who is talking about the pivotal moments that make them the leader they are today. I really hope you enjoy the episode. I can't wait to find out what's in store. Welcome to the Game of Leadership podcast, everybody. It's great to have you here with us today. And we have Amy Avergun with us again, Instructional Designer Extraordinaire, for her third episode. So you really are knee deep in this stuff, Amy. There's no getting away from it. You've come back for a third time. And I'm so grateful. Thank you. So, Amy, I'm just going to remind the listeners who you are, because if they've not heard either of the other episodes, they won't be aware of who you are and why I've asked you here today. So Amy has spent her career designing and delivering workshops on a wide variety of leadership topics, such as finding your purpose, taking charge of your career, and fostering teamwork. Amy and I first met a few years ago whilst working together to create the Accelerated Purpose Experience. And Amy's client list includes GSK, KPMG, BP, Devon Energy, Thermo Fisher and Herman International, amongst many, many others. So we are in super experienced hands today. And Amy's purpose is to help people play to their strengths and fulfill their purpose, no matter what role they are in. So, Amy, welcome back. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you.
Same here. Same here. I've enjoyed these chats. They've been great, Paula. So thank you for inviting me to come back.
Oh, you're welcome. And as always, I enjoy the fascinating twists and turns that our conversations take, because you always bring such a unique perspective, which is really, really appreciated. There's always more to things than meets the eye, which is really wonderful, because you bring that unique storytelling skill that you have to everything you do. Which is why I was so keen to have you as part of this, where you share all of your interesting journey and story around the sort of leadership support you've given over the years, and of course the leader that you are today. So look, in the first episode you shared your leadership story and your unique view of leadership as well. And in the second episode, you shared a different aspect of looking at the game of leadership, if you like, but bringing those different things from experiences and readings into how we apply those into our day-to-day, if you like. So what is it that we will dig in today is the pivotal moment, really, in your leadership that's made you who you are today. So with that, I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay. So a pivotal experience for me was I was working with a consultant actually on the BP project that I did for several years. And this person kept saying to me, you have to come to my workshop. You have to come to my workshop, and to be honest, I found the guy not annoying, but, a little intense. And I thought, I've been designing training for 20 years. I really don't think there's anything new under the sun that you have to offer. I mean, shame on me, but I was pretty dismissive. And I really didn't want to drive, an hour and a half to go to this workshop and spend 2 days there. But finally, I relented and I went. And, I think my mind was blown, because it was a very simple thing. It was very elegant. But here's what occurred. It was a workshop that was designed to first get me very clear on what my strengths were. And then secondly, most importantly, what was my purpose? What was my leadership purpose? And it was all done through storytelling. And what I realized at the end of these 2 days was that here I had been designing and delivering training for many years.
Mm.
And it was skills training. You know, I could teach you how to do anything, how to give feedback, how to give recognition, how to conduct a performance review, how to, you name it, in 6 key actions, do this, do that. And it was almost, I wouldn't say it was charm school, like if you walk like a duck and you talk like a duck, you're doing it. But it was very successful. We would win awards for that kind of training. And let's face it, it provided me with a fabulous living that allowed me to send my daughter to college and buy a house. So, I didn't get rich, but it worked. But what was different about this workshop was it felt like it was leadership from the inside out. That the skills training I had been doing was leadership from the outside in. If I looked like a leader and I acted like a leader and I helped, obviously the business I was in was helping other people look like a leader, quack like a duck, quack like a leader. And this experience of helping people to identify their purpose was so different that people, kind of dug into the themes of their life and they saw what it was that had intrinsically motivated them throughout. What were the common threads and what were the strengths that enabled it? And, watching people, I went through the workshop and then I was lucky enough to start to facilitate it.
Yeah.
And what an experience that was, because I just saw people go through this workshop and, the moment when they found the words to describe their purpose, they lit up. You just knew they had, how did I know? Big smile on their faces. And it was a very interesting process because they did identify their strengths and then they started to identify their purpose, and they did it in small groups so that I was more the facilitator. And what happened was people just sort of spoke out loud about what they thought their purpose was, and the other members of the group gave them, asked questions, gave them feedback, watched their body language, listened to their tone of voice. And it was a very good example also of a non-hierarchical sort of group working to help each other. That these people kind of had worked together for a day and a half, and they noticed things about each other and they gave each other feedback on how authentic they were being about this purpose. Well, I think you're missing something here, Paula, or what about this? Or, gee, when you talked about it, I didn't really see you, light up. And it was up to the person who was trying to get to their purpose to take on or not take on that feedback. And I found that very interesting because so often we're in groups and whoever is the manager or the leader, their voice holds sway. And this was an example of collaboration. Companies are always looking for what's the best way to get people to collaborate. Oh, here's these 6 things you can do. Yeah. And what I saw was by telling their stories, people were just collaborating with each other. And, there wasn't they didn't feel bad if they didn't take on what somebody said. And there was a most wonderful comment that somebody made at the end of one of these workshops. It was a group of participants from all over the world. And this man was from Italy, and English was not his first language. But he said, he commented when we were asking about, what are your takeaways or what are your insights? And he said, it occurs to me if at the start of every team, when a team was first assembled, if people went through this process, it would just make the whole collaboration so much. We talked about frictionless in an earlier podcast. It would make it have so much less friction.
Yes.
People would not be posturing for position. Uh, there's the whole thing about how teams are formed.
Yeah.
What is it? Forming, norming, storming, and performing.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me that by doing this, telling these stories so that people saw who you were most authentically when you were trying, to be at your best, but really challenged, and then struggling to figure out what your purpose was, that it really cut out a lot of the storming. And it just, you kind of went from forming to performing.
Yeah.
And because the norms were built in. So I guess what I want to say is, in my life of designing training, I still love doing it, and I like to do it. I like when somebody calls me with a new topic, and I do some research and figure out what the best approach is. But if I had one workshop that I would encourage people to go through, it would definitely be to figure out what your purpose is, because it just makes all of your priorities kind of rise to the top. And it also, I think, gets rid of a lot of the noise in your life. Like, okay, this matters or that matters. And, it just gives you perspective that I think makes your life, again, have less friction and less stress. It's just, okay, this matters to me, but that doesn't. And in the scheme of things, I'm not going to worry about that, because it's not. It also helps you, I think, make career decisions. Is this really in line with what makes sense for me, what matters to me? There's an expression that I saw in something that I read recently, that we have a lot of what's called junk values, acquiring things. And, I think when you know your purpose and your energizing or motivating strengths, that you really, I don't know, I think you don't care that much about those junk values. I don't have to have a nicer car than you or a bigger paycheck. It's really what matters to me is what's driving me. So anyway, that, realizing, going through that particular workshop and designing, versions of that has really been a very different experience for me. And
well, it's so lovely to hear about that, Amy. And I've often talked about, connecting with my purpose being that one of those pivotal moments in making me who I am today.
Tell everybody your purpose, Paula.
So well, thank you for that. So my purpose is all about three things, which I'll pull out in a second, but it's the courageous natural artist, nurturing trust with calm tenacity. And it's the courage, the trust, and the tenacity that are my core values that really do permeate into everything that I do, is a way that I sort of choose to describe it. And I think, when you have the why, that you talked about intrinsic motivation earlier, when you have that intrinsic motivation from your why, and in this case your purpose, the what, the when, the how, it all flows naturally from that. And it really has helped me over the last few years to articulate and focus where I want to go and where and how I'm going to get there. And it's a focus that I would definitely say I didn't have prior to connecting with that purpose. It's incredible, and it's absolutely my honor to be able to offer the two programs that I do around purpose, the Accelerated Purpose Experience, or for individuals connecting with your purpose, because I get to do that deep and fascinating work to help somebody have the same that we have. And it's so exciting, because again, each one of us is absolutely unique in what our purpose is and what intrinsically is purposeful to us. So it truly is fascinating, and I really love that's a big part of what's made you who you are today. Were there any other little moments in there that spring to mind? Or I know that's a big one.
It is a big one. And just, in addition, there's the individual identifying their purpose. What I've also had the experience of is working with a team, like an executive team, and linking the individual purpose to the organizational purpose. And what's fascinating is let's say you had 9 people. What you find is each person has a slightly different purpose.
Yep.
And then they find a way to link it to the organizational purpose. That, any organizational purpose is a big thing now. And a very good way to think about it is an organizational purpose should be like a huge tent. Our friend Alf, who we both know, first described it that way. And that's how I think of it, that if the organizational purpose isn't huge, it isn't big, then there's something wrong with it, because there needs to be room in that tent for all these different purposes that people have. In the States, there's an ice cream company, Baskin Robbins, and they had 38 flavors they used to, advertise. And I think, so, 38 people, 38 purposes, and needs a big store. It needs a big tent to make that happen. So it's really very cool when you work with first individuals on their purpose, and then you hear how their purpose and strengths then link to the organization's purpose, and utilize that. So I think that's another dimension of it. And I kind of like doing that sort of work at this point. So, and the other thing is, I read these articles about how important organizational purpose is, but I never really see a good way for people to figure out what it is, so I feel like that's a unique gift that you and I have of working with people to help them figure that out somewhat.
And it's so interesting, Amy, isn't it, how it is kind of almost the latest buzzword for organizations. We've got to be a purposeful organization. It's fine to say that, but are you really doing the work behind the scenes to make sure that each individual within that organization, whether you're 1, 2, 20 or 56,000, like some of the corporates that I've worked within over the years, what are you doing to help each individual with their purpose, A, understand their own purpose, but B, connect that to the purpose of the organization. So it really is interesting, because it is, I feel, a very changing landscape at the moment. And a lot of, as I say, buzz and talk about it, but not so much in terms of taking action to really truly implement that within the organization. There is only one that I'm really aware of that has truly taken it to heart. And that's and I only know this because a friend of mine works there, and that's Tropic Skincare. So if you look at Susie Ma, the CEO, who has the infinite purpose for Tropic, and how that all sort of permeates throughout the business to all of the associates that work there, is absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like it, and to me that's the gold standard now. I want to see every organization, so every person, like do you know what a stick of rock is? It's like this, about that, I'm saying about that long. It's about probably about 6 inches long, say, if you're listening to this, and it's about the size of a pound coin in the UK, and maybe don't know what that would be in the US.
Maybe a $50.
Brilliant. In the US, so that sort of size, 6 inches long, and it'll be some gaudy color on the outside. So traditionally it was pink, very minty flavor, and you sort of bit it off, but inside it would have writing. So I like to think that if we cracked open one of these people at Tropic, it would have infinite purpose written in the middle. Because, if you crack me open, I'm hoping it will say courage, trust, and tenacity.
Right.
So, this is what I mean. It truly is who you are. And once you connect with it, you can't really get away from it. Who would want to? Because it just, it drives the things that I do and who I am.
It just, when you're telling that story, and I'm thinking about, all of these organizations that are giving, I think of it as a big set of lips when it, lip service when it comes to the whole purpose thing. And it's such a missed opportunity. And it isn't that hard to give people a little bit of time to figure out how to connect their purpose with the organization's purpose, but it's just a missed opportunity that they give, they basically give lip service to the whole idea of purpose. And people, it's like, I've worked with so many clients that they have their set of values, and, they often want me to incorporate their values into whatever the workshop is. And, it is such a stretch, because those words are not people's words. They have they have the 5, and it's like you're going along in your workshop, and then you get to that point where they insisted that you do something on values, and you can just feel the energy just go out of the room. It's just deflated, because those words don't mean anything to people. It's not that they object, but it's not, it coming from the inside of who they are. So
finding those connections, so allowing people to connect to those 5 values that organization has is so important. And it's all about helping them buy into it. Why is it like that? What does it mean? And then what does that mean for that individual? So, and often that's the missing piece. Gosh, Amy, I could talk to you all day. This is so fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing.
Very welcome, Paula. It was really my pleasure to be part of this. So thank you so much for inviting me. And, it's really kind of, I don't know, cool, but enlightening to have this opportunity, like somebody interviewing you and kind of getting to asking these questions, what was a pivotal moment? It's really, I don't know, it's helpful to kind of rethink some of that and get back in touch with it. And so I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And thank you for your very thoughtful questions. And I like doing this a lot. And I hope, I can't wait to hear other people and how what their stories are. So thank you
fantastic
again.
Thank you so much, Amy, and I hope that might mean that I can have you on again in the future, because I'm really sure we'll find another whole bag of golden Amy nuggets to dig into. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. thank you for listening to Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. This has been the third episode and final episode for a little while anyway, with our guest who shared their pivotal moments that make them the leader they are today. Again, I talk about uniqueness a lot. Every guest story and their pivotal moments, the challenges they faced, the issues they faced over the years to get to where they are now, and how they pulled themselves through all of that, makes them the leader they are today, and each one of those stories is unique and different. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with them and see what that meant for them. Now, once again, it's your turn to reflect on what you've heard today, see what resonates for you, and think about what that might mean for your leadership moving forwards. I'm Paula Eddie Wilcox, and I look forward to welcoming you back next time on Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Bye for now.